Let's see if second time's the charm. Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. What are we talking about today? Well, it's the Gibson M3 reissue, take 2, and so far, I think we're gonna have a much better time. So about 2 months ago, I bought the electric lime version of this guitar that was supposed to be like really clean shape, just traces of wear. It ends up having like a bunch of touch-ups and nicks and dings. That was not a very good experience. And despite that being my preferred color for my Gibson M3 collection, I've gotta say, this Cosmic Cobalt is actually quite fantastic in person. It has a really wide color shift, and it's a super rich dark blue. That's looking quite nice. It hides all the little scratches really well too. But if you haven't seen one of these things before, it's one of the most non-Gibson Gibsons that was birthed in the early 90s. So let's do a little bit of history before we talk about its reissue. The Gibson M3 was their last attempt at a Super Strat guitar, and it came out at the ripe year of 1991. The history of the M3 would be so different if it was 1981 versus 91. But we had to go through things like the Victory, the Q/Alpha series, U2 and US1 models before we finally got to the best version, in my opinion. Some people are quick to point out that it kind of looks like a John Petrucci Majesty, but this actually came out first, and I've had both of them now. They're nothing the same, but vaguely similar shapes. But it's very futuristic. You've got this really cool swoop on the back. It's great for upper fret access. You get these maple fretboards with the cool arrowhead inlays, reverse Explorer style headstock, and despite only living for a few years, there are a boatload of iterations. So many that it's hard to find photos of all of them. So my goal is to track down all 11 and have them in my museum. So within the M3 family, you have the Standard, Deluxe, Stealth, and All-American models. But then there's also the M3H, featuring just the humbucker pickups in the Standard and Deluxe version. Then you step up to the M4S in the Standard and Deluxe, and then the one we're talking about today, the reissue. Now there's also 2 Les Pauls within the M3 family, as the M3 Studio and the M3 Classic, because the M3 refers to the wiring of these. It's this nice little fancy diagram. You can pause and read it if you'd like. We don't have to cover it today because the reissues are a little bit simplified. But as you just saw, some of them are limited edition Carina. Some of them had the really cool walnut maple poplar sandwich bodies. Most of them had the maple fretboard, but some had ebony. Most will have the arrowhead inlays. Some just have dots. But generally speaking, you'll find the 496R 500T pickup set with the NSX in the middle. But now whenever I refer to these, I always say reissue in air quotes because it's not really a reissue. It's more so taking that idea and building upon it. What makes the 2013 version different from one of the 90s originals? Well, A, instead of the typical 496R 500T pickup set, we now have Gibson Dirty Fingers Plus pickups, so that means they're ceramic. We actually have an officially branded Floyd Rose instead of our Gibson Schaller counterpart like you'll find on many of these. Although some select models, as we saw today, do come with Steinbergers. Instead of having a mini toggle switch to activate your coil splitting, they decided to put it on a push-pull this time to make it a little bit more modernized. And perhaps the biggest change, instead of being poplar bodies or a layered one, we have for the first time a solid mahogany. This particular example is ridiculously heavy. It's gotta be the most chunky M3 I've ever held. The way they carved the heel is a little bit different too. Here's a 90s original, you barely have anything. But you come over to our new tribute series, they actually left quite a bit on there. But you still have your nice little swoop right there, getting the body out of the way. That's what makes the M3 such a comfortable guitar to play. And that's coming from a Les Paul lover who doesn't really like Super Strat guitars that much. The M3's just always had a soft place in my heart because of how great they play. But the M3 reissues were offered in 4 different hues. Cosmic Cobalt, which we're talking about today, the Electric Lime, Vibrant Red, and Orange Glow. So to learn more about our blue friend, let's go ahead and take it to the workbench to take an individual look at its parts and specs. I'm about ready to pull my hair out. This model is cursed. Why can't I get a good one that's as described? Now I'm acting up a little bit for the camera, but this is how it was described. All original pickups, comes with hard shell case, minimal wear. I was so happy with this one, I actually recorded the playing demo first and I noticed, these pickups actually sound really good. but the in-between positions are absolutely unbearable. They're out of phase. So I thought, okay, something's up with our original pickups. I need to reverse the polarity or something. But no, these are not the original Dirty Fingers Plus. Apparently these are PRS SE pickups that somebody threw in here. So once again, I guess I'll have to find the orange one to review another day. But I digress. Let's continue on our review. I'm not going to do another halfway. Here's what the neck pickup cavity looks like. The neck itself is made of maple, so that's why you're seeing some maple show through here. However, as far as exposed mahogany, I'm not really seeing it. This Cosmic Cobalt finish does not show the wood grain of the mahogany as badly as the green one. Like if you get it in the light just right, can you see it? Yeah, but it's not that whole same lacquer sink effect, which is kind of cool sometimes. But here's our bridge pickup cavity. Nothing too special in there. But the good news is the middle pickup is still original, and that would be the hardest one to replace. However, unfortunately, I do not see any identifying marks to it, but I do see the typical Gibson braided wiring. But here's what that route looks like for the curious. It's got the brass inserts, so that's how you mount it. Something else I noticed as soon as I took this out of the case, the neck pickup ring was backwards, so I just thought maybe it was a really bad day at Gibson, but no. Now we know someone else was in this thing at some point in time. But just for fun here, our bridge pickup reads 8.8 k ohms, the neck is 8.1, the middle pickup itself 7.93, but your in-between positions, they're out of phase on this guitar. 4.04, and these two together, 4.2. And don't forget, over here you can lift it up. It does still work. It coil splits these pickups just fine. And our bridge is 4.43, these two together, 2.86. The middle doesn't do anything. These two together, 2.73, and then just our neck, 4.15. It's a pretty simple master volume and a master tone outside of our push-pull pots and a regular blade style switch. But outside of our pickups, as far as the body goes, this one is actually looking really good. Now it's got some scratches over here, but I think that falls perfectly within what the seller is saying, and I polished it up a little bit. So I'd be willing to live with that for one of these in my collection, but unfortunately I found something else over on our neck. So we can move on from our mahogany body to our maple neck and maple fretboard. The combination of this white, kind of yellowy looking maple to the side profile shot with the blue is awesome. But do you guys see what I see? Uh-oh, another finished touch-up. I laugh to hide the pain. Now, honestly, if everything else was fine, I would probably just live with that, because that was the most major blemish I saw. But in my opinion, something like that should be disclosed. The last time a viewer of the show was saying the maple fretboard that I said was characteristically 90s was a quarter sawn maple board. This one doesn't look the exact same. It's got a little bit more streakiness, but our frets are in pretty good shape on this one. Our locking nut measures 1.7 inches, increases to 2.06 at the 12th. First fret neck depth 0.84 and 0.89 at the 12th. Here's that neck at the first fret and the 12th fret. Just a very blade thin C, but yet it's still got a bit of roundedness to it. Not that you notice it because it's so skinny. But now moving on to our headstock, I just saw something that I've never noticed before. How strange is that? You've got a full truss rod cover on these things with a locking nut. Almost all Gibsons have a sawn off bottom one, including the original M3s. I mean, at least it's black and matches your headstock veneer, but I'm never going to unsee that about these now. But your truss rod's hiding all the way in there. But it looks like it should function just fine. But that's definitely kind of a messy install job for our top screw there. And then these guys get the Gibson silkscreen, which is a real letdown. But if I remember correctly, these really weren't all that expensive back then. And now we move on to the back side of it. I don't believe any of this stuff has been replaced, so if you're trying to verify if yours is original, this should be a good judge of that. But here's what our current control cavity looks like. Definitely non-factory solder work. But here's the thing, this could be easy enough to restore, so I don't know exactly the fate of this one at this point in time. It'll either be something I move on in my shop to somebody who doesn't care if a guitar is fully original or not because they just want to modify it more, or I'll end up restoring it. But as far as condition, just in case it's the latter, there is like a small worming mark right there. It's possible it's underneath the finish, but hey, at least no giant chips and touch-ups right there. The one touch-up we got is relatively minor, but it is right on the edge that you're playing. But otherwise, it's looking pretty decent. The neck is just so skinny and slim on these things. Tiny C-shape. And I really love the black hardware on this one. It matches perfectly with our cobalt finish. You can see somebody has left a clip-on tuner on it in multiple locations for extended periods of time, and it has kind of impressed the finish a bit. And it's not completely uncommon to see cracking along right here. What that is the peg head veneer has moved where the rest of the finish has not. So it's like a joining line essentially, but with minor movement to it. You can also see a line right there. That's just where they add their wing of wood underneath it to create the shape. You've got a little bit of that same phenomenon on the side that you'll also see, but not quite as bad. There's also like a very tiny ding right here. All said and done though, this one weighs 8 pounds, 6.5 ounces, but let me tell you, it feels heavier than that in the hand, but on a strap, it's not all that bad. So let's go ahead, plug it in, and hear how these replaced pickups sound. I don't know about you guys, but those in-between positions sound like crap. There we go, the 2013 Gibson M3. What are my final thoughts on this one? It took me a little bit to get warmed up to what I should exactly play on this, but towards the end I was actually starting to have a lot of fun. It's just I can do a lot more on this than I can on a Les Paul because you got all the funky Floyd Rose stuff going on. And this one was actually set up fairly decently. It stayed tuned much better than that green one. So I'd say this was a much better episode in that aspect. However, I'm not the guy to get the most out of an M3. I just love these things so much and like to share my passion for them. They might not look traditional. They might not scream Gibson, but I would suggest trying one out. What an odd choice to have it out of phase. I wonder if that was intentional or if somebody just messed up the wiring when putting new pickups in. We've talked to the seller. He gave me the money back to go get the pickups. I'm just going to restore this one and keep it until I find a slightly better one. Ultimately, I would still like the green one, but I've come to really appreciate this blue, especially because of this side profile shot. The blue and the maple just works incredibly well when you're playing. So alright, Troglodytes, I hope you enjoyed the retake of the M3 from 2013. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you guys tomorrow on the next one. Take care.